So in this video, I'm going to talk about monographs. Now, a herbal monograph really is a way of showing information about a medicinal plant. And you will find these in lots and lots of herbal books. In fact, you'll find them in the majority of herbal books. Now, they might include different information, but usually it will have information about how the herb is used, the dosage, and maybe its traditional actions, and they become more and more complicated as you go up through intermediate level and more advanced level books. So within a monograph, you'll usually have information about the botany. So what is the plant? What plant family does it come from? And also information about the flower, about the leaf, and about the root. This is so that you can identify the plant. And certainly this is what was used pre the internet. People would have used books to be able to identify plants. That would have been the only way, and so that information would have been vital for people identifying new plants and understanding medicinal plants in their area. Usually as well, it will have information, most importantly, about safety. So it'll have contraindications. Contraindication means when you should not use the plant. So, for example, in pregnancy, in breastfeeding, and with particular drugs. So it would have that information if it's available about the herb. That's essential, and also information about the dosage. So how much of this medicinal plant do you need to be able to have an effect, and also the same way so that you know that you don't go above that dosage so that you don't then have side effects, which it would often have side effects listed. So a side effect is not a contraindication. People do get the two confused. A side effect is usually when the herb is taken in a much higher dose, what effect does that have in the body? So for example, if you were to take a lot of calendula, you may well find it has a laxative property. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a plant that is laxative just within normal dosage range. It's just if you were to go above that, then that would be something that may be considered a side effect. Other things might be it causes a rash in very high dosages. You do find that with certain plants. So side effects is something you might well see. And on more advanced monographs, you'll find research. So when this herb was studied scientifically, either in a lab, biochemically, what was found, or was it actually studied within a research trial? So say they gave 20 people with IBS chamomile, for example, and what were the effects of that? For example, they might say, well, they gave 20 people chamomile who had IBS, and they gave it to them for 10 days, and they found that after the 10 days, the IBS had reduced by 50%, something like that. I mean, that's a summary, but that's the kind of research findings that you might well find in more advanced monographs. Now, in my monographs, I tend to leave that for people who are at a much higher level of their study, because it can get complicated, and if people do not have a science background, they can misconstrue the information that is in there. That doesn't mean that I don't think that people should be informed and should read more, research studies. Of course, if that's your sort of thing, that information is out there on the internet. Feel free to read it, but you will often find that I do a summarized version of a monograph, so that any person without any scientific knowledge at all can understand how to use this plant just by reading my monograph, and can do so within safely. And that's the difficulty with information that's often out there on the internet, is that that information is not given with safety information, and therefore it just says take calendula. It's perfectly safe. Anybody can take it, and you can use it for I don't know, skin conditions, or you can use it in different cancers and things. And while that may be technically true, it's not something that I would recommend for just anybody who just wants to grab a bit of calendula and try it. That you do need to do so within um, safely, and you need to have that information, which is why I have this here as a monograph. So I'll go through the sections so that you can see what each of the sections mean. So this is my summarized monograph. If you're signed up to my Herbal Hive library, you'll recognize them because these are the ones that I have in there. So first of all, you'll have the botanical name, Calendula officinalis. Now these do change, so I wouldn't be too worried if some of them are the slightly older name. So its common name, it's sometimes called marigold, and often you'll have hundreds and hundreds of common names, but in this one I've just kept it to one. The plant family is Asteraceae, so that's the daisy family. And aerial parts is the part that is used medicinally. Aerial parts means everything that's growing above ground. Stem, leaf, flower. So this is the dosage. So we've got it in tincture and we've got it in dried herb. So that's if you were going to have it as a tea, that would be that one. And also, if you wanted to do it in a capsule, that would be the same. And the tincture is obviously an extract in alcohol. And if you were going to use a glycerite, for example, then it would be the same as a tincture dosage. Just in case anybody wants to have something that's non-alcoholic. And also, if you wanted to do it as a medicinal vinegar, again, it would be the equivalent of a tincture dosage. You could actually do slightly less. So the tincture, 2 to 6 ml, 3 times a day. So this is the maximum. This is the range. So it starts at 2 ml and ends at 6 ml, and within that range is where the medicinal properties are going to lie if you take this medicinal plant. So here we've got the actions. So these are traditional herbal actions of what a plant actually does. So what action does it have? So lymphatic, that means that it has an effect on the lymphatic system, usually to clear things from the lymphatic system. Vulnerary, that means that it heals wounds. Antiseptic, that means that it just basically is able to not allow bacterial growth within a wound, for example. Anti-inflammatory, that one a lot of people know. It will be to reduce inflammation, so reduce redness, swelling, all those types of things that are inflammatory. Antispasmodic, so that's one that actually reduces spasm that you may get, for example, in dysmenorrhea, so painful periods. That would be a spasmodic condition that you wanted to reduce the spasm of. Or, for example, IBS, so within the digestive system, that's a spasm, so that would be another way that you could use an antispasmodic. Astringent, that means to draw tissues together. That again is more so to do with its tissue healing abilities, calendula. A menagogue, now this means to increase the flow of period blood. And this is why it's not used internally in pregnant women, because of the amenagogue action. And you'll see that just there written in the caution. There's also a caution in breastfeeding. And cholagogue, that means to increase the secretion of bile. And also antifungal, that's more so externally if you were going to use it in sprays and creams and all those kinds of things. So then you've got indications. Now we've had the action. What does the herb do? And then we've got where in the body can we use those things. So that's the indications. So specifically, inflammation in the gastrointestinal tract, constipation, ulcers, cystitis, vaginal thrush, dysmenorrhea, that's painful periods, conjunctivitis, skin inflammation or infection, eczema, cracked nipples from breastfeeding, burns, and bruises. So those are some specific uses, and that's the matching actions that we just talked about. So here we've got the contraindications in red, as I talked about, not in pregnancy, and caution in breastfeeding. Now, there are not any interactions with medications here. This is where it will be listed if there were any interactions with medications with calendula, which there aren't currently. Obviously, that does change, but currently. Then we've got external usage, and again, it's a list of how it can be used externally. We've got the botanical description, the habitat, where does it actually live, range, where does it grow within the world, and it is world round, around the world. Method of collection, that's usually when should you collect it? Should you collect it when the flower is, fully out? That's the sort of information that will be there. Conservation, this is very important. So, is it something that's rare? Is it something that's restricted and that you shouldn't pick in the wild? So that will hold information there about that. Then we've got traditional uses. So traditionally used for headaches, jaundice, red eyes, and toothache. That's always useful. Usually it will match up with the actions that we already know now and are confirmed scientifically with how it was used. And that's true because we've already looked at those things. Here I've got some references. So these are references that I've used in creating this monograph. I have also used my own knowledge as well, so there's a bit of me in there too. But also these are some references that I've used. And I also have in my monographs a little section about your own experience, so that you can write, what did you find when you saw it growing? And what did you feel about it? What was the smell, taste, and feel of the fresh plant? And what was the smell, taste, and feel of a dry plant? So that you've got something. What is your own experience of that plant when you come across it? Whether that be as a tea and you've got it in the cupboard, or whether it's because you're going to make a cream with it as an infused oil, whatever it is that you're gonna make. So you've got that section to be able to bring your own experiences into the monograph. Obviously, you don't have to do that, but I keep it in my monographs, a section for the user to add to it. Now, so you'll see that I did not have sections on the biochemical makeup of the plant because those are on more advanced monographs. I didn't include the research findings. So the pharmacognosy, the pharma, and the research findings are on more advanced monographs. But so you can find that information available on the internet, but I tend to not put it on mine because they're for people with no scientific background. So that's a monograph, and if you do take part in my more advanced courses, for example, in my year-long herbal medicine course or more advanced herbal medicine course, or even my intermediate level study groups, then you will find monographs there. And as I said, they are also in my Herbal Hive library. So yeah, if you have any questions about monographs, do pop them in the comments.